Welcome everybody to NFTs, an opportunity for the photographic industry, ? And what I want to do is talk about and look at what NFTs are and how they can be of benefit to the industry and what are the pitfalls and things like that. I'll introduce myself. My name's Julian Jackson. I used to be a picture researcher or photo buyer for a long time, although now I write about technology for various magazines and organizations. So technology is very important to me. I also run a small photo archive, the Werner Foreman Archive, and I dabble in photography. And I'd like to welcome my two distinguished panelists. We've got Christina Hawatmeh, who's CEO of Scopio, which is a photographic agency which oversees vision and growth. She was named one of the top entrepreneurs to follow by NY Finance. And her photographer is going to be releasing a book in June called The Year Time Stopped. Scopio is a community-based platform and marketplace where anyone can share images and stories from around the world, with the goal of elevating human stories told by people from underrepresented communities and regions. The vision of Scopio is to distribute the world's images so they can make their place in history. Scopio has over 25,000 businesses who use millions of images and hire more than 14,000 artists from 150 countries, photography, art, illustration and more. And our other distinguished guest is Nancy Wolff. She's a partner at the intellectual property, media, entertainment law firm of Cowan, Debates, Abrahams and Shepherd, LLP, located in New York, and Beverly Hills, California. She represents a wide range of creative individuals and companies in all areas of digital media, art law, licensing and publishing, and serves as counsel to the Digital Media Licensing Association. Nancy is co-chair of the firm's litigation department and co-chair of the firm's Art Law and Emerging Technologies Group, where she's been handling transactions involving NFTs. Now, what I want to do start off with is to do something basic and explain blockchain, NFTs, cryptocurrencies with the use of Lego. So I have brought some Lego with me and I'm going to do this. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but for those, some of these things are difficult concepts to deal with, and that I think this will help. And it excites me anyway, get to play with Lego.
That's a good idea.
Right, here we go. Hope you can see this okay. Now, the blockchain is the underlying disruptive technology behind Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies, okay? And so how the blockchain works is that blocks are joined together. There. So here you have a block and then another block on the blockchain joins up to it sequentially. And then you get other blocks. So that's the blockchain along here. And the blockchain is actually made up of individual transactions. Now, all these blocks are validated by a decentralized web of computers, and each computer is a node and it has a copy of the blockchain on it. Okay, so that means that it can't be falsified, and that all these blocks have been validated by thousands or millions of computers. But each block on the blockchain is made up of individual transactions. Now, with these Lego blocks, we're going to have 4 transactions, okay? But in reality, of course, there's thousands of them. So as the blockchain is built up, it's built up of individual transactions. Okay. Right, so you can see we've got 4 individual transactions. And what happens is that there are people who are mining blockchain, mining Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Now, the mining is actually solving complex equations with their computers. It's just called mining. The idea is that you had to do something that involves a proof of work. That you'd have to do something that involves a proof of work. So you have these 4 transactions. And when a miner's mining completes the equation, solves the equation, they get paid in a Bitcoin or a fraction of cryptocurrency. So they get paid by that, and that validates all the previous transactions. It's a payment. And then all the other computers on the nodes will then check that that's correct. So it isn't really possible to falsify that. And then, of course, everything goes on, and the blockchain continues on in a linear fashion. Now, that is Bitcoin. That was the way Bitcoin started off, and it's and the Bitcoin was the original, it's the prototype. Now, if you think, and things have changed since then. For instance, the prototype motor car had only 3 wheels, made by Carl Benz in 1885. But of course, we have 4 wheels in cars nowadays. And so what happens is that there are improvements. And from Ethereum, which was the second cryptocurrency, and onwards, there was what's called smart contracts. Now, smart contracts are another layer on top of the original transactions. Okay, smart contracts I don't think is a very good term. It's more like an application programming layer. That is, you can program this layer to do something. For example, to settle accounts and to do things like that. I mean, anything you can do with software potentially you could do with a smart contract. So that's
you can also think of it as a visual receipt, a receipt with a picture on it.
Okay, good. A receipt with a picture on it. Okay, so you have another layer on top of that. Now, all these Lego bricks, they're fungible. We could replace this 8 brick with 2 of these 4 bricks. So they're completely replaceable, just like money. You know, the dollar or pound in your pocket, it doesn't matter. It's the same as any other dollar or pound in your pocket. So what are NFTs? Now, NFTs are unique assets that are built on the blockchain. They're digital versions of art. They're collectible artworks, they're limited editions. They can also be thought of as proof of ownership, a kind of certificate, and you can resell them. So they, in our little model of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain, here we have some artwork. Let's see, some artwork I made myself. It has a certain primitivist je ne sais quoi. Okay, but here is a non-fungible token. It's different from any other one. So this is built on the blockchain. And where are we? Here's another unique one. It's even got a little bit of metadata, and like my initials and my name in. So that, again, we can build that onto the blockchain. So that's added. Now, strictly speaking, some that NFTs aren't usually built on a blockchain. It's really an indicator for something, an NFT that's actually held somewhere else. So really, it's more like that. But this, I think, is a visual representation of how cryptocurrencies and NFTs and blockchains work and relate to the blockchain. And these, I hope everybody's seen that okay. And it makes a bit of sense. Right. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? No. Okay. Right. Well, then I think the thing to do is for me to invite Christina to explain her view on the situation, what the opportunities are.
Sure. And I'll go and plug Nancy. She has some really interesting articles and she's been speaking a lot about this. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the technical nature, why this is good for your business, and how it actually works in terms of licensing, feel free to look up all of that information afterwards. I'll go from the entrepreneurial perspective and talk about why I'm super excited now and why I think this is the most remarkable thing that could have happened in our industry. It is moving very fast. A lot of people are not sure where they can participate in this or how businesses can transform. But there are a few bottlenecks that I think are incredibly solved. Operating my business for 9 years now, I've faced a lot of hurdles when it comes, let's talk about global artists. Globally, there are countries like Turkey, like Iran, like Cuba, even other countries in South America, many countries in Africa that don't accept ways in which they can be paid right now. You can try through PayPal, but there are banned countries and there's incredible creativity all over the world. So without these bank transfers from large organizations in the stock industry, that has really been the barrier for all of these different artists to participate, is the payment method. Can they make money? Can they receive that? Can they transact? Can they become an owner of works? And this is going to allow us to do that because you can be paid in crypto anywhere. And then you have that record of ownership. So nobody can really take that away from them, not even their governments. So I think that's an incredible advantage that we haven't looked at. A second one I have really faced is about 2 years ago, I tried to buy a picture for my brother-in-law for Christmas of the Pope visiting. It was this remarkable image that Getty Images had of the Pope visiting the guy that shot him in jail. So there's this image is in the Getty archives, and I had to use basically all my resources to go and track down that image. Now, people have connections with photography in different ways, whether it is an image like that, whether you're a sports fanatic. There is basically all of our history locked up in a few organizations, and we never get to really have that ownership in it. So now I believe that as we transform, we have this new market of individuals all over the world that want to connect in a sentimental and emotional way, that see imagery and art as a way to do that, but don't need to go and buy a Picasso or something, that is going to cost them thousands and thousands of dollars. So in this way, you could collect a nice Michael Jordan photo, you could share that, and you can become an owner and really a part of that community. I think, or maybe that's not the best example with Michael Jordan's IP rights, and Nancy can get into that. But in theory, there are these like basically locked up history that we can now unlock. And I think that is remarkable. Another thing is that we actually have hit the most creative generation in history. Julian was asking me why that is. I'm not sure, but I really have a nice theory that the Renaissance came about due to the plague that had happened right before that. And then people were just sick of it, and they wanted to, the Michelangelos came out and they wanted to see all these incredible art and participate in things that would make them happy. So that's a simplified version, but now we have this generation, which is basically 13 years old, creating this content. the industry and our world is really made for the adult that is distributing and is the artist. So we really have to see how we're going to usher in this 13 plus generation and then really, again, make them owners and be able to participate, especially as some of these NFT projects are making millions and millions of dollars, and these are minors. So what is the responsibility for us in that case? And those are just a few things I'd like to start with, and look forward to discussing more.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Nancy, would you like to take the floor?
Sure, and thank you. And thank you for inviting me. It's so nice to share a platform with Christina. So I have the obligation to show all the issues that can come up instead of all the fun. But and being a baker, I've always explained the layers of the blockchain with the NFT as a layer cake with the cherry on top. But now I see that the Legos have some advantage. But NFTs have really caught everyone's attention. And of course it was, when people sold 5,000 basically stock images put together for $69 million, everyone's, eyes lit up and they're like, I want in on this too. And I think people sort of forget that sometimes the rules you understood about copyright and contracts of law still come into play with NFTs. It's just, they're not sure like how, because it seems like a whole new frontier. And of course, technology is always leap years ahead of law. But if we could sort of start with the basic premises really are not all that different. So first of all, you have to look at what is the NFT and who created it? Is it one owner? Has someone taken a photograph and added some Adobe layers on top and think that they own it because they added some layers?
Actually, Nancy, in fact, this is a derivative work, isn't it? I've painted on Lego. So actually, are you going to ask Lego to sue me now?
Well, it is only a triangle. And so maybe that Lego is not really a sculpture. I don't know, it could be. But anyway, yeah, so you have to look at the work itself and do you own it? I mean, if you are the author and creator, it's pretty easy. You can take your photograph and you can go to one of the sites that are selling photographs and they can kind of walk you through how to mint it. What I would say, what I am seeing is a lot of people are trying to claim they're experts at NFTs which is hard to believe since they haven't been around that long, and want to take a big percentage of someone's sale because they're going to do marketing. But I find that this is just opportunistic. It's not that hard to go to a website and they can walk you through how to mint. And, that's a whole process and make a wallet, but that's what you need to do. But often a lot of the interesting NFTs are ones that have some kind of interaction or built digital. So many people are now sort of working with some digital houses to make static photographs less static. And then you have to determine, well, you're creating derivative work, who's going to own that? And if you're working with a production house, you want to make sure that you have a contract that, if you want to own the end derivative, that's in writing. So then the second issue is, or the level of law, is that you're going to go to some platform generally to sell an NFT, unless you're developing some specific one on your own, which is pretty hard because then everyone has to come find you. But a lot of people will go to, there's some that are just for photographs now, or OpenSea or Rarible. There's many different platforms that, as you said, use different types of cryptocurrency. There's proof of work, and now there's some proof of stake because people are really worried about the environment. You have to look at the terms and conditions on the platform and what they can do with your work that you put up. Some will want to use it for their own marketing, and there'll be terms and conditions about, what happens if someone's work up there is infringing. Can you have them take it down? Once something's on a blockchain, it's there forever. I don't know how that's ever going to work with a notice and takedown unless you just send the NFT somewhere to die where it never can be seen again. So you need to look at platform terms and conditions if you want to sell on a platform. Then if you want to buy an NFT, you have to think about what rights are you getting? Because just like you might buy a print at a gallery, if you buy a work, you're not getting any copyright in that work. What you call as a smart contract is, as you said, the wrong word. It's not a contract. It's an if then. Someone likened it to, you put money in a vending machine, you push a button and the machine knows that for that amount of money you get a candy bar, and out comes your candy bar. So it's not like a certificate of authenticity that you get with a gallery. Now, some of those can be linked to the chain where you would have all the things that really make a work collectible if you want to be in the art world. But your typical smart contract won't have that. Why people love the smart contract is that within it, it does contemplate a transaction where on the secondary market, an artist can get a resale royalty, which is very hard to get in the physical world. And that is, I think, what is making people very excited. That's changing too. I mean, by the minute, this world is changing. Right now, generally, many of the sites only allow one person to get that money. So if you collaborate with someone else, there's a lot of off-chain accounting, but there are variations of so-called smart contracts that can start to allow more than one person to get some of that percentage, which can be 10% or more sometimes. But then if you sell it to someone, are you going to let them share it? The right to display is a digital right. And so all those are the types of issues that are coming up, like what you can do it. And there's a situation where this group of investors bought this rare manuscript of Dune, and they spent millions, and they thought that they could then, make a movie using it. They didn't realize they had no copyright. They basically had a physical book. So there's a lot of misconceptions. And then another thing I didn't mention is you have to look at what is inside your object you're selling and see if there's any third-party rights that may or may not need clearances. If you're selling something as a fine art, you may have more leeway than if not. But you have to know if you're dealing with NBA stars and doing something that's like a collectible trading card, you're going to have a lot of issues that you're going to need to clear. And I probably went over my 10 minutes, so I'll stop for questions.
On that note, can I ask, what's the difference between memorabilia and an editorial image? For example, now you can't sell editorial in all these different ways. With NFTs, you can sell editorial images. How do you know whether that is memorabilia or not? And that is what is not allowed, right? On the NFTs.
Well, we're talking about trademark rights and rights of privacy and publicity. So is something an expressive work? And this is under US law. We have a very strong First Amendment. Other countries, rights of publicity are more equal to copyright. But in the US, the right to express yourself is under a First Amendment, as well as the right to use something in a newsworthy way. And so you don't need additional permissions usually to sell an image that's for editorial use or for artistic use. So if it's and I think you have to look at how it's being sold. If it's being sold on a site that typically sells art, and perhaps it's edition, perhaps not, but it's being presented as a visual work of art, if you're selling it and it's a site that's all like NBA players and they're all licensed and they're like, you're really focused in on a player like you would on a playing card, and it's in thousands and thousands of copies or something like that. All these same issues exist, whether something's a poster or a limited edition print. There's always that gray area. You have the same gray area here. But in the area of sports, it's NFTs have become very popular, and the leagues have become, more aggressive about enforcing their rights.
Yes, that's very interesting, Nancy. That as you're a player in the league of copyright, and I'm just somebody who looks on from the sidelines, if we're going to use all these sporting metaphors. But what I've noticed in photographic in intellectual property and things like that is that the law had these cases and things like that people were taken to court, and that set up precedents. And I guess that's what's going to happen over NFTs. But it's going to be more difficult because kind of if we talk about the photographic example, if, say, for instance, there was a intellectual property case in America or in Europe, although they're different copyright, well, then everybody would say, oh, right, we've got an idea about that. Whereas this is totally global. And that, of course, something that's decided in New York or London or Brussels or whatever isn't going to hold with other legal systems. So do you think it's going to be some kind of long process before we get ideas of cases and we've got a sort of rule of thumb that we can use?
You know, the issue, that issue of digital works existing globally has existed now, the same problems, and copyright is very territorial. You have US copyright law, and then you could have the law of the UK and the law of France, and then and we act within treaties where we say, we'll protect your work, you protect ours, because there's never been sort of a world copyright. And it'll take a little while for cases with NFTs to come along, but I think you still would look at some of the similar legal principles that you would have in physical space with the digital space. You just might have a lot of difficulty finding some of the parties who you may need, because you can buy NFTs without someone really know. You might know who has a wallet, but you may not know the identity of the owner of that wallet. So there could be some.
And you can have multiple wallets. So if you wanted to hide your transaction from others, you could have another wallet.
Yeah. So just knowing the identity of someone, which could happen today too, might not know, who uploaded someone else's photo. I know that there's some sites, and I know that OpenSeas has had a lot of problems because there's these bots that have been going to other art sites. I think in particular things like DeviantArt, and they've just been swiping art and minting them up at OpenSeas. And it's just become, I guess a swamp of infringing works. So these are the kind of problems with everyone rushing in and being so excited about NFTs, thinking, well, if I see it online, I must be able to use it. I mean, I have professional photographer clients that have been in the fine art world for years that all of a sudden say, well, can't I just make an NFT out of someone else's work? Isn't it transformative just to make it an NFT? And no, because the NFT is just a way of selling something and recording the digital object as one rare object. And the object itself is not on the blockchain, but as you said, it's pointed to, it's stored in another server. So it's still a digital work of art. It's still a photograph, and it still would have IP rights that belong to somebody.
Good, thank you. I've got a quick question for you, Christina. We were discussing before the meeting started. I mean, basically, the second largest blockchain is the Ethereum blockchain, and a lot of NFTs are minted on the Ethereum blockchain. But you at Scopio, you've chosen to go on another of the altcoin blockchains called Solana, and I wonder if you could explain why you did that.
Yeah, so for background, a few months ago, we added a option to purchase an NFT on all of our images. So now there is a layer above our images that can be purchased and then sold through the blockchain. So we were at the time, I believe, the first female founded NFT site and the first photography focused NFT site. So what we wanted to do was stay true to our mission, which is to democratize the ability to sell your work and also to buy it. Ethereum today, I think, is at $3,000 for one ETH. So you really, I mean, we're talking about big money to be purchasing through, and they usually start at one ETH and go up. Solana is about $100 per one Sol. So we thought it was more global for us to go through that route. And it's also more of a community-based one. Also, if you're reading the news, it's good to look at what's happening in this space, because there's a lot of investment in the infrastructure of different coins. So Solana has been heavily invested in, and you'll see in the future, there will be a lot more projects and sites built on that. I don't think that you need to think about that. I don't think any of my users need to even think about that. It's just another coin. Some of the, just like the pound or the dollar, some of these pounds and dollars also have infrastructure behind them, which is what Solana and ETH do, but not all coins, not all currencies do. So if you have like a dinar, that might not have actually the system behind it where you can sell. And that's super interesting. But I don't think the user really needs to be thinking about what they're buying it in, because you can just, it's just like money, like buying a candy bar in pounds or buying a candy bar in dollars. But it's more of the accessibility of, can you own that, and can you afford that?
Okay. Right, good. Is from my panelists, is there anything else you want to say about this before I open it up for questions from the floor?
A question for Christina. So I know there's some artists who have been, concerned about the environment and have been looking more at proof of stake instead of proof of work. Do you see a lot more options in that area where it has less environmental impact?
I think we really need to explain what the difference between proof of work and proof of stake is, please. Okay.
Well, proof of stake, from my understanding, is the value is based on having an interest in the whatever.
Yes, having some of the tokens rather than mining them.
Right. Yep. Right. And yeah, because there is some artists that are very well, and a number of companies I know have been reading about have been trying to set up the ways of mining where they can use like wind energy and solar energy. They're trying to be less environmentally horrible, which
yes, I actually wrote that. I wrote an article about that. There is a large drive to use renewable energy. There's a number of reasons for that. They're actually good because you can have too much renewable energy if the sun's shining a lot, or you've got the wind blowing heavily and you've got more energy than you can use. You have to shut down the wind turbines. But if you can actually take that off and use that to mine cryptocurrency, you can use that energy. I did get there was somebody put in the chat that Solana's carbon neutral. I'm not entirely convinced of that, but that was a point made, because all these systems have energy involved in them, so that unless you're offsetting it. But anyway, maybe we should look into that a bit more, or maybe I should. Okay, what I'd like to do now is ask people if they've got any questions. Can you, if you want to, if you find on the bottom bar, you say reactions, and you can put up your hand, and then you can unmute yourself. So any questions for either me or the illustrious panelists? Oh, here we are. Jenny Quiggin, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm way behind on this, so I'm really know very, very little about NFTs at all. What I'm wondering is, for a photographer, if they had work up on an NFT platform, how might they expect their work to be used or viewed? Obviously, I think that depends on the terms and conditions of the particular site, but could I expect it to be then, it's a digital version, so would it just be something that people would view on their computers?
Yeah, you'd have to look at the terms and conditions on the site to see what would be allowed, because typically you could only, that display right is actually something that needs to be spelled out, because that is a right of a copyright owner, is the exclusive right of display. So that should be there. So it may be that it could only be for private use. Some sites may allow other types of use, but that's all parts of the information that will need to, if it's sold on the secondary market, need to be transferred to the next buyer, because what's on a terms and conditions on one website may not be on the terms where something's sold again. So those are the kind of things that the smart contract is sort of missing. And I think it's helpful if there are additional terms that can be linked to, that can travel with the NFT, whether it's in the metadata or somewhere. So whoever owns it knows what they can do with it. And I don't know, maybe Christina can tell us what someone gets when they buy an NFT from her site.
Depends on, again, the site terms that Nancy mentioned. On our site, because you're uploading your work to Scopio, you're actually licensing it to Scopio. Then we have the right of distribution for you as a stock site would. And so that doesn't allow that, again, the user to have the copyright from you. If you wanted to give the copyright, I feel like that's like the golden ticket. So for example, I would only do that if you really wanted something to happen from that specifically. So for example, Bored Apes, I think Bored Apes, they give away the copyright to the ape when you buy it. And I know I have a friend who's starting an entire film production around that, and he's creating a series around the Bored Ape that he owns. So, and he can do that, and others can create similar works or different ones completely contradictory to the story he wants to tell. So it really depends on, but that's the story that they want. They want people to create characters out of it. They want people to give a life to that purchase. So I think you have to think about that step. And I really want to talk about the whole storytelling community part of this, because it's very tricky and it's something we really haven't thought of. And it's this muscle that you really need to get good at now to be able to sell into this new market. If you have your photos up, let's say you put them up on OpenSea, you list them at your prices that you believe are correct for you. You really need to add this like life into it, which is whether it is a fantasy story or whether it is actual documentary kind of an approach to it. People are going to really buy that story. They're going to buy that information around the image. The image is almost like backing up that concept that you want to sell. So for example, we have a Ukraine collection up. People are able to purchase those Ukraine images to support a nonprofit that we're donating to through the purchases of these images. We have a lot of Ukrainian artists on our website, and we are supporting them in this way. So we tied something, it's called a utility. We tied a utility into that project. Scopio did that. In other sites, you need to do that yourself. So, so that's where you can tie, even if you wanted to like donate it to build a well, or let's say you wanted to buy something, you could actually galvanize it in this Kickstarter kind of way into your project. But the more information, the more storytelling, the more time you spend on building that narrative is going to make your images more valuable. Nancy, I think that's super interesting, because before we were talking about the value of the image in terms of quality standards and more artistic measures, but now it's, I think, being judged on the storytelling of that image. How valuable is that in relation to what I'm buying? And that's where I think we have a really big opportunity to engage people in photography where they've lost it. Like I have this incredible collector's item here. I know barely anything about it, and it's from the Irish Civil War, and I would love to know more. So those are the kinds of examples. But
yeah, I would agree. I think the NFTs that are the most successful are where your buyer and the owner of the object have an experience together, or there's some kind of engagement, or they learn something and they feel like they're part of some experience. And whether you maybe connect having a physical object also with the digital, or I mean, there's so many different ways of, I've seen people do things where you buy it and then you have to like give one of the ones you get to someone else. And works very well for concepts and conceptual art, as well as storytelling, where you want sort of to tell more than just the visual aspect.
Okay, that's excellent, very interesting. Now, Jason Gardner's has submitted two very interesting questions, so I'd like him to ask his questions, please.
Hey everyone, I'll turn my hand off for there just to. So I sent in on the chat, but I've been researching this NFT thing for a while. I call myself NFT curious. Um, and it's clearly, Ethereum, a lot of the big photographers are using it, and it's not carbon neutral, and I've started looking into Tezos and Solana and these things, but the first question I had, my concern that most of my current network are not really. There's my cat. He says hi. He sees all Zoom calls and he must join. It is, I guess, just the fact that a lot of people, there may be some friction in basically having people not understand, oh, I have to get this kind of coin now, or this wallet, versus they've heard of Ethereum and Bitcoin. And just your comments on that, how you've, maybe Christina, how you've found as people, first time loggers into Scopio to buy things, do they have problems with figuring out the Solana coin and all these things? Like, am I basically overthinking it, or is it a real concern?
I'd like to actually ask Nancy, we have photographers on Scopio's site that would like to list the same image on the Ethereum network and the Solana network. What do you think about that?
Well, a photograph is a digital object. And if you're not saying it's like 1/1, that you're only going to sell one, I think you probably can list it more than one place. It's really what you represent to your buyer and what they understand they're getting. So are they getting, is that the only image? Because if someone uploads an image to you, is it non-exclusive or exclusive? Can they upload it somewhere else? What do your terms allow? And so I think that's what really matters, because with copyright, you can make many different copies of something, but what have you promised your purchaser? If you went to a gallery and you bought a limited edition print and it was 1 out of 10, you expect there'd only be 10 of those in the world. And, it could be sold at a few different galleries. And I know, and I think some of these issues with different wallets and having so many different kind of currency will eventually work themselves out. There's going to be middle people or middle kind of companies that will help with the interoperability. And so you can, because right now, if something is sold in one type of currency, it's hard to then sell it in another. And those are all these things that will probably start getting resolved, because there's so many different kinds. I mean, Ethereum is the most popular. I think Bitcoin is going to be opening its own big market sometime this spring, I've read. And
Through
there's
Coinbase,
a lot. Yeah, Coinbase. So there's a lot of different coins, and it does seem a little overwhelming. Like, what coin should you do? And I think at some point it might not matter. There'll start to be markets that.
Yeah, I think also not just looking at the coin, but you want to look at the website. For example, OpenSea, people are very familiar with it. I think it has like 90% of the market share for Ethereum, something, Nancy, something really big.
Yeah, really.
So I would be like, oh, if my friends know OpenSea, I would go to OpenSea. And I want to talk about that purchase. So basically, if I was doing my own project, I would spend 90% of my effort figuring out who I'm going to get as my buyers, because what I'm seeing is that it's really their friends. So it's kind of like Kickstarter, Nancy. I did a Kickstarter years ago, and they were like, oh, there's all these people on Kickstarter and they're going to buy your thing. I ended up raising $32,000. That's how I started my business 10 years ago. And it actually ended up being all my friends and family. And then they put 12%. They take 12% out of it. So I was like, I could have just not taken the 12%, got my friends and family to do this. And I didn't expect that I would be asking money from them, and I didn't want to do that. So I kind of got caught into this thing. And I see that similar to how these projects are going, where they think, oh, there's all these random buyers out there. Once you get popular enough, yes, there will be. But it is your community. It's the people that follow you on social media. It's the people that think that you're awesome. And those are the people that will buy. So the popularity translates into these projects. Sometimes you might get lucky, but a lot of people are spending 90% of their effort on Discord and Twitter trying to make friends that think what they do is interesting and that will support them and that have that amount of money to spend to support them and to get that whatever it is in exchange, which is why a lot of projects are attaching a utility to it. Maybe you give them a one-on-one coaching, like you can teach them for a 30-minute Zoom session on photography, or let's say they get exclusive invites to any gallery openings you're going to be doing for the next 2 years. There's things like that you can attach. You don't need to have it ready yet, but you can just say, hey, for every event I'm going to be doing, or for any release I'll be doing, you'll have a print. I will mail you a print for the next 1 year if you buy this. So I'll send you every month. I'm going to send you a new print for 1 year if you buy this for $1,000, let's say. So you really have, people are like not really sure about NFTs. So if you can attach some real world utility to it, I think you can become more successful until they get the point of what is an NFT, what is the real value of it, and use Discord and Twitter as much as you can to start building that artificial community, or use your current community if you have it already.
That absolutely sounds like traditional marketing,
Yes.
Going heard about all sorts of artistic productions. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule. There's 20% is creativity, exactly, and 80% of it is the marketing. And of course, in traditional marketing for courses and coaching and things like that is, you for example buy a book and then you get you pay extra to get the the one-to-one coaching or something like that. These sorts of are completely traditional, and it doesn't surprise me at all that you have to carry them, unless you're a big name, that you have to carry them over into your creative productions in NFTs. It seems to me that if we be going to be terribly reductive, and you're all going to hate me, but it's another new medium. You remember when CDs of photos came out. So I think perhaps,
unless you're a remarkable storyteller and the story is so powerful, like Ukraine, it's so important right now, people want to support it, there's nothing else you need to do. So it just depends on, is that good enough by itself? If it's not, supplement it with other things.
Do you have, Christina, to my second question, any guidance or a couple links that you could send along to us to kind of, because Twitter and Discord, more Discord, are a little bit intimidating for me, being a relatively new user there. How do we, like, some of it's like finding where the people hang out, how do we engage with them? Are there things that exist that we can have a look at that might be good for, call it 101 and 102?
Yeah, maybe Nancy has a few suggestions too, but I like looking at the really popular projects and kind of backtracking from there. So Justin Aversano, I think, has sold 12 million on his photos, and Drifter shoots 40 million. Justin Aversano did a series called Twins, I think, and it's like X amount of photos about different twins, and so basically a lot of twins like bought these pictures, and he ended up selling $12 million worth. And then Drifter Shoots is a guy that posts photos of his sneakers, like on the Golden Gate Bridge, and I think they're Vans on the Golden Gate Bridge in different places. You look at it and you're like, on Scopio, I have thousands of those pictures, thousands. But this guy created a story around it. And so what you can do is join their channels, follow them, see who's talking about it, and see how they're setting up their channel, and copy what you want to, and kind of backtrack. So look at some people you want to be like, and then see what they have set up, and then copy that. I think and create your own landing page on your website dedicated to that, or make your social media about that too. So that's what I would do if I were you.
Okay, thanks. I hope that answered your questions, Jason. Has anybody else got any questions? Please raise your hand, or if you have. I'm not getting any raised hands. I think we've kind of not got any more questions to come, so I think we ought to draw this gradually to a close. But before we do, Christina, just do another quick plug for your book.
So in June, the Year Time Stop will be out. It's currently out on all major platforms: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart, global retailers. It's 200 images from around the world, and each image will literally send chills down your spine. It's accompanied with a story. It's a beautiful coffee table book, and there's chapters that will really delight you on what happened during 2020. So if you don't see it now, maybe you'll see it in libraries, museums for the next 100 years.
And are you going to be selling those as NFTs, the individual images?
We're thinking about an NFT release project for the books, where they get something related to that, because each one has its country also. So a lot of connections can be made to the community.
Right.
If you have any platforms like podcasts or TV or anything, anybody has recommendations, I'd love to connect with me. I'll add my email as we start the promotion of that.
Yeah, it seems the music industry.
And Nancy helped me with it too, for disclosure.
Good.
The images are amazing. So, yeah, the music industry has done well, thinking about combining NFTs with like, you know, music that's coming out, and you can get an NFT and you can trade it in and get, you know, the download, or you can get front row seats at a concert. So I think what you were saying about trying to make a story or make an experience, give something to who's buying it, is true, because I think a lot of these NFTs are really not being bought by art collectors. It's a whole different market. And a lot of it I think of as all the trading card kids who want to like go on and buy a little something every day and have something. But you have to think of who your audience is.
And they say 90% of these projects will end up failing. So you really have to do a lot of research and realizing and how you're going to make it and how you're going to stand the test of time.
And probably you might not want to mint a lot because it's expensive. Like you can put something up on some of these sites and not mint it until someone actually buys it. There's some tricks to try to save some money.
That's also why we did Solana, because it's like 10 cents a mint instead of $100+ on Ethereum.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I just checked up, the Solana blockchain is the 9th largest in the world, according to CoinMarketCap. So although it's not as big as Ethereum, it's still and of course it has advantages. So it's going to be a very big platform, I think, in future. Anyway, I think we've come to the end of our time. And firstly, I want to thank our wonderful guests, Christina of Scopio and Nancy Wolff of CDAS. And I also want to thank all the guests and people who've come here. I hope you've got something out of it. And I'm also planning to do another one about NFTs probably in May. So I hope that I'll send you an invite and stuff like that. But I want to thank everybody, and I'll call this production to an end and draw the curtain. Okay, thank you everybody.